always want to see more fish than fingers.
Give him a nice release.
She attack. She attack. She attack to me. Attack to she. You must be late. She attack. She attack. She attack to me. Attack to she.
Mr. Jackson.
Alrighty, my name is Jackson Becker, and you can find me on Instagram and YouTube at Becker Saltwater Guide. And I'm here with it's actually one of my teachers. I call him Mr. Spencer. Mr. Spencer, but everybody else knows him as Spencer.
Or Mr. Legend. No,
Yep, yeah. Legend in the fly fishing world.
Absolutely not.
So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, like about growing up and how your passion for fly fishing started?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from Auburn, Alabama, born and raised. And I feel like growing up, fishing was one of the things that would get me out of the house. Tell mom, hey, can you take me to the county lake? Can you take me to the outing club? And around Auburn, there's all kinds of lakes. And you can be a member of the lake or just a county lake where you can go and rent John boats, or there's just John boats there for you to use.
Wow.
So I think when I was 14, for my birthday, my mom and dad got me a little trolling motor from Walmart, a battery.
$99 special.
Oh man, I was on the move then for sure. And so being able to go out fishing was just the one excuse to get out of the house. It was cool for the parents. So
Yeah, like that's kind of how I got into it too. It was I really got into fly fishing when quarantine started, and I had a friend that did it, and I was interested in it, and he kind of got me into it, and I started just practicing on my own, like casting and stuff like that, and eventually I just got a passion for it, and I just really loved it, and I taught myself how to do it, and it just got me out of the house, and it gave me something to do during quarantine, and I just kept doing it after quarantine was kind of over. But so what place do you love fly fishing the most? So I know like you're in Auburn, and like when did you start fly fishing at a young age, or when did you pick up fly fishing, and where do you love to do it the most?
I grew up fishing my whole life. Just, I think being in Alabama in general, that's just something people do. Growing up bass fishing, pan fishing, coming down to the coast and doing some offshore stuff with my dad and my uncle. But for fly fishing, my mom is originally from North Georgia, so we would go up there on vacations, and we had a big cousin vacation, all aunts, uncles, cousins, we were all together, and I think I was about 10 years old. And I was chasing around my cousin, I'm really close with now, Ryan. He actually goes by Squirrel. So I was chasing Squirrel around.
What's your nickname? You've got to have one too. If he's Squirrel.
Yeah, so my nickname, I have a couple nicknames. So Squirrel's his trail name. So he hiked the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, and so you get a trail name when you go out on those adventures. And so my trail name, because I hiked the Appalachian Trail after high school, is Squash. So you can call me Squash.
Squash.
All right.
Squash Miles.
Students, there you go.
The little insider, call me Squash if you want, Mr. Squash for the kids.
Mr. Squash.
Green or yellow?
Green.
Okay.
Yeah, I like yellow squash.
Okay.
I had some acorn squash last night for dinner, as a matter of fact, but it's more like I was just so tall and gangly
like
when I was 19.
squash.
I was like squashing the miles,
Gotcha.
It's really easy to hike. So, I love squash. And so I was chasing Ryan or Squirrel around, and he had a fly rod, and we were going up this creek right at the house we were staying at. I just thought it was so interesting. And, sometimes you look up to people that are older than you, whether it's a cousin or just, somebody that you really admire. And so I saw him fishing. And on our way back from that trip back to Auburn, we pulled through Bass Pro Shops in Atlanta, and I bought a combo, the Dogwood Canyon combo, $79. Bought that in 2000, and I still have it today. One of the cheapest things that I own, is 20 years old. And so I got that Dogwood Canyon set up, came back home, been growing up bass fishing, pan fishing, and started to introduce the fly rod into going out on the John boat with the trolling motor. And, I just had so much fun. You go all day trying to catch these big bass and on Texas rigs or crankbaits, and introducing that fly rod and learning to tie the flies and building your leaders. And even if you're not catching anything and being able to cast, as a kid, it really caught my attention. And I could catch a little panfish, and it just felt like a huge fish on the fly rod. So,
Right.
Yeah. Everything feels bigger on the fly rod. So I ignited my fly fishing passion in saltwater, and I know that you've done a lot more freshwater than I have, and within like bass and like trout up in Colorado, and that was more of your skill like set. So how did that translate or to like saltwater?
Yeah, absolutely. So grew up going to Georgia, fishing rivers and creeks, fishing ponds and lakes around Alabama. In college, I was really into traveling around and whitewater kayaking. So, wherever there's whitewater, it's typically on a river, and that's where the trout swim. So, kind of blended those two passions. And then when I moved to Colorado and I lived out there for about 6 years, where I was in Southwest Colorado is really the epicenter of a lot of really good fly fishing. It's 45 minutes north of the San Juan River in New Mexico, which is a world-renowned trout fishery. In town in Durango, really quality trout fishing on the Animas River. And then north of town, all in the mountains, there's a lot of high elevation creeks, and even higher than that, there's a lot of lakes at 10, 11, 12,000 feet that hold fish. So it's really like, Disney World for trout fishing in Colorado. But when we moved to Florida, I still had the passion for fly fishing. My wife actually bought me a rod, I think, when my wife got pregnant and we talked about moving back home and talked about moving to Florida. I was extremely skeptical. But then she went to the local fly shop and got me an 8-weight, a really nice 8-weight saltwater rod, and I think that's how it got started into the saltwater world. Yeah, she tricked me.
So she was the one wanting to move here.
Yeah, absolutely. And once I got that 8-weight, I paired it up with a reel and started kind of casting in Colorado. Then we moved down here. And I have an inflatable stand-up paddleboard, and I try to get out as much as possible.
So she used bribery to get you down here, pretty much with a fly rod.
Yeah, she's pretty witchy. She gets her way.
Anyways,
yeah. So do you enjoy saltwater more than freshwater, or do you still love freshwater more?
I really enjoy both. I don't want to be pigeonholed into one thing. I definitely don't fish still water as much. I can't remember the last time I went out for panfish or bass on the fly rod.
Yeah.
My parents live in north Georgia now, so I do trout fish quite a bit, even though we're in Florida, and I love them both. I think the saltwater is a little bit different. It's more of it's kind of like turkey hunting. It's more, I'm head hunting and a little more meticulous and slow, and there's definitely a lot more to it. And getting this
reward. Bigger fish. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stronger fish.
Stronger fish for sure. And it's just enjoyable, even the days launch out of Hogtown, not catching anything, I'm seeing crabs, seeing dolphin.
It's just a cool ecosystem to just look at.
Yeah. Drooling over dudes, sweet boats and stuff like that. It's it's definitely a different scene. Freshwater fishing is really enjoyable too. I definitely miss hiking into the backcountry in Colorado, not seeing a soul, and just being really connected with nature. And I definitely get that fishing down here, but you see the boats and you have the planes going over, and you see the houses on the shore and all that. So it's I don't think I could choose one or the other. It's just a different experience.
Yeah. So you said that you tied a lot of flies in Colorado, and when you were growing up, you learned how to tie flies. And so how has that translated to saltwater also? Like, what flies have you learned how to tie in saltwater? And like, is it very similar to tying freshwater flies, or is it very different?
It is the same techniques, but different in a lot of ways. I feel like in the saltwater flies that I'm tying, I'm using a lot more synthetic fibers.
Yeah, because I tie a lot of saltwater flies, and it's like mostly synthetic, and they're a lot bigger. I've never tied freshwater flies though, so
yeah, the size is huge as well. So I referenced that San Juan River in New Mexico. It's a tailwater. It's below a dam, so the water temperature stays about the same, whether it's the middle of the winter and freezing or the middle of the summer and really hot. And so the fish are extremely picky. So I was tying flies that are size 20, 22, size 24 sometimes,
really
which,
small.
it's a smaller than the eraser on a pencil. Whereas in saltwater, I'm tying much larger flies that are an inch and a half, 2 inches long, and using synthetic fibers that are a little bit easier to store and easier to handle with your fingers as well. So
yeah, that definitely be a lot harder. I don't even know how you tie like a 22 size fly.
Yeah, you don't use a lot of material.
No,
Patience.
No, I bet not.
Yeah, patience. It's
I don't even know how you get like that material on your fingertips, like put it on there, like it just, I don't know. So you've started fishing for redfish a lot, and would you say that's your favorite fish to catch here in the bay?
Yeah, that's definitely what I target. I feel like I'm never targeting the trout. I hear people talking about the sheepshead. I hear people talking about the Spanish coming into the bay.
Yep.
I have some catfish bycatch sometimes, but redfish is definitely the mode that I'm in when I'm trying to get out and go fishing, is looking for redfish, hopefully seeing tails and just trying to get that visual sensation of, the thrill of the hunt.
Seeing it, yeah. It's a lot. I think it's probably the closest thing to hunting in the fishing world. You have to find them. You see them, and then you put the fly right in front of them, and you watch them eat it.
Yeah.
It's a really cool, feeling.
Oh yeah.
To watch them swim up to it and just eat it.
And you've had the opportunity to fish with who's going to be on the next show next week with David Mangum, right?
I have, yeah.
How was that? Did you learn anything from him?
I learned so much from him. The one thing I'll say, I don't know if he'll listen to this podcast, but that was the coldest day of my life. I think it was the winter break this school year, and I had a trip lined up with him last spring break, and we had to cancel that because of COVID, and I had a deposit down with his business and couldn't really find a time. And, I know winter break was coming up. I saw some good weather coming in. A couple weeks out, I called and we set it up. The sun was out that day, but it was
Cold.
it was freezing. It was absolutely freezing. I feel like I wore probably 6 layers, and the wind was kind of wonky, and I blew some shots, but I mean, he is an absolute legend. I mean, I was like watching everything he was doing and asking a ton of questions because that dude's legit.
He is, yeah, for sure. I can't wait to have an interview with him and get to talk to him. But I've had days like that. I think I went out the day after Christmas this year, and it was I don't even know, it was like below 40, like it was 40 or something like that. But it was cold. It was cold.
You take your boat rover you got for Christmas out? Just kidding.
No, I
Inside joke. You got a great Christmas gift that still has not been used to its full extent.
Yeah.
I'm picking it up this weekend.
There you go.
No, I actually was wading in my waders, and it was like the water was so cold. I only fished for like an hour and a half because after that I couldn't feel my fingers.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
And I've definitely fished in freezing temperatures, in the snow, in the rain in Colorado, but I think it's a little bit different.
Especially once you get used to this warm weather.
Yeah, well, I think I'm referencing, when I'm freshwater fishing, I'm not casting very far. A lot of times I'm fishing in a zone that's maybe 6 to 12 feet out from where I am.
Yeah.
Whereas in saltwater, it's a little bit more of an athletic move to get your fly out and have that smooth presentation in the fish, 50, 60 feet out from you.
Could
and
even more than that, but yeah.
when it's cold and all you want to do is hug yourself, it's hard to it's hard to cast.
No, I know what you're saying. But so if you could fly fish with anyone in history, like dead or alive,
okay,
who would you fish? Anybody in history?
Anybody in history?
Who would you fish with?
Oh man, I can't really think of anybody in particular.
Because you are a history teacher.
So I guess I'm thinking about like a good fishing guy. Like I don't want to go out with somebody that's famous and get skunked. It's like, well, he's really cool, but
that's true.
He's a terrible fisherman.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. I'll say somebody, but I will also preface it and say I really enjoy fishing. I find it like really spiritual to me, and I love going out by myself. And I think that's really what I enjoy about fishing is just being able to solitude and just being connected with nature. So, if I could go out with anyone, it'd probably just like be my dad or just like anybody that's, chill.
Anyone that's chill.
Well, there goes you, Jackson. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, I got a story about Jackson.
Oh, let's hear it.
Yeah. You can tell the story.
So yeah, I enjoy fishing, by myself. And I feel like that's kind of selfish, but it's, I just love those quiet moments and, working on my knots and seeing a fish and just experiencing that to myself, not even bringing out the camera for a fish and just like having something for yourself, I think is really important in life, especially when you're, giving so much of your energy to other people, whether it's, to your family or to your work. It's, fishing's my thing. So,
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's hear the story about Jackson because you left me hanging here.
Yeah.
Well, Jackson and I went fishing one day. It was in the fall.
It was pretty cold. The water was cold. It was chilly.
It was chilly that day for sure. I was underdressed. And so I drive over to Sandestin, picks me up in the parking lot in his golf cart. We go out on the dock and get on his boat. I'm like, this is it. It's all coming together, And so we go out. And it's a little bit windy.
It was a windier day. It was probably 10 to 12 knots. It was definitely choppy. We didn't get skunked that day. We caught 2 trout and one was a keeper.
Yeah, we didn't get skunked.
We did not get skunked, but you can tell what happened.
Something had to happen here.
Yeah,
I can tell.
something happened.
It was funny,
It was funny. Yeah.
Jackson, I know that he grew up here. He's got his boat, so I'm like, this is it. I don't have to do anything. It's going to be Mr. Spencer catching fish all day and chilling out on the boat. And so we go into Hogtown Bayou, which is just east of Sandestin. And, we're fishing around and we catch a few. And then we go back into this bayou. I forget what the bayou's called, but it's like on the south side of Hogtown.
It was Churchill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we get back in there and, we're fly casting and not really seeing anything, but we brought our fly rods and it's the
We were
only
just trying
shelter.
it. It was it was the only sheltered place. And also getting into that bayou, it was super shallow. It was so shallow. There was like a little channel that was like dredged out. That was a little deeper to get in the bayou. But other than that, around it was like
Mud?
maybe 9 to 10 inches of water.
Yeah, it wasn't very deep. Well, we got in and getting out was the problem. We're fly casting, checking out Jackson's fly cast, which is, pretty good. And, we're just like, all right, well, let's run out of here. And so we start getting out. I don't know if it was the tides or the captain.
It wasn't a tide. It was more of the wind. It was so windy
Yeah, that's
that
right.
I couldn't run. Well, so I couldn't go too fast because I was going really slow to try to get out of there because it was so shallow that if I went fast, my motors would have dug up into the seagrass and stuff. But so the wind started pushing us back, and we just got pushed back towards because it was like a crosswind, but it was like pushing us back across into like 9 to 10 inches of water.
Yeah.
And then we got stuck. So me and Mr. Spencer got out of the boat, and you pulled up your pants, you got all wet, got in the water, and we pushed the boat off
Peaceful
this bank.
experience.
Yeah.
Off this bank, and we got it, and we went and we got it out. But yeah, it was quite funny because you were not ready to get in the water.
No, I was already cold. It was a cold day, and then we run aground. It's like, all right, well, now we got to get out of the boat, and we're down in the water pushing this boat out. We're like, all right, that's it. Like, let's just go home. We had been out for a few hours at that point.
I think we
anyways.
actually caught another fish after that, though.
We went back to that the south side of that peninsula.
Yeah, and then we caught another one.
Well, guys, hey, we are running out of time. We got about 1 minute left.
Okay.
If there's the last question you'd like to ask.
Alrighty. So my last question would be: if you could go to any fishing destination, where would it be?
I feel like it's really cliche, but I would want to go to the Seychelles. I listen to a lot of podcasts and I, geek out on all kinds of saltwater destinations. And I feel like Seychelles, if you can get there,
And where is that?
it's
For those that don't
guaranteed.
know.
It's right. It's off of Madagascar.
Okay.
It is like the fly fishing mecca of the world.
Yeah. So
Every big fly fisherman is like it's their dream to go there.
it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I would love to go there too.
I'll go to the Seychelles, and you also get to, I think, your layovers in Dubai. So you get like a cool cultural experience, and then go and almost guaranteed success.
Yeah.
If your wife's listening right now, you just hint.
Look at
Maybe
that.
not a
Maybe to the
fly rod this
Seychelles.
time. Maybe a trip.
Yeah, let's go on the other side of the world.
There you go.
Yep. So I'm glad that you came and talked to me on this show. It was I think we got to share a lot of stuff about our lives and our experiences, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was good.
Maybe-
We talked about it for a long time.
Yep.
Glad we made it happen.
Yep.
Awesome. We're so glad you guys came on the show. What a cool memory to have. Just the student and a teacher be able to go fishing together. I mean, there aren't many schools
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
around the country where a student's taking their teacher fishing
Yeah.
and leading the way. So thank you so much for being on the show today, and we'll look forward to you next week. Bye-bye.